Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us from a viewer, thanks to RZ for this one. If you're from one of those countries that happens to pronounce that letter a different way, sorry, but I'm a bot laner. We don't talk about Zed here.
Do not deny me.
Amy plays a Grizzly Bears, while she controls Welcoming Vampire and Wedding Festivity. Does this cause the Welcoming Vampire's ability to trigger? Okay, so in order to answer this question, we're going to need to know some things about triggered abilities and continuous effects. First of all, let's remember that anytime anything happens in the game is going to check to see whether any triggered abilities should trigger. So that means immediately after the Grizzly Bears enters the battlefield, the game is going to check to see if this should cause Welcoming Vampire's ability to trigger. Now, the other thing that we're going to need to know is that continuous effects that affect the characteristics of objects are going to apply simultaneously with those objects entering the battlefield. That means that there's no point in time at which the Grizzly Bears is on the battlefield that the game isn't going to see it getting +1/+1. That means that after the Grizzly Bears has entered the battlefield, the game is not going to see that a 2/2 creature has entered the battlefield and then got +1/+1. Rather, it's going to see that a 3/3 creature has entered the battlefield. This does not match the trigger condition on Welcoming Vampire, so Welcoming Vampire will not trigger. This works both ways too. So for example, if we didn't have the Wedding Festivities, but instead had a Nature's Revolt, and Amy played a land, then what would happen is the game would not see a land entering the battlefield and then turning into a 2/2 creature. Rather, the game would see that a 2/2 land creature had entered the battlefield. This does match the trigger condition on Welcoming Vampire, so you would get a trigger. Now, I'm sure the next thing on a lot of people's minds is what would happen if these two situations got combined. So, for round 3, let's bring back the Wedding Festivity and see what would happen if Amy played a land while she controlled all 3 of these permanents. So, in order to answer this question, let's bring back the rule that I had talked about earlier and notice that all of the continuous effects are going to get applied before the game checks to see if any triggered abilities have triggered. That means that when the game is deciding whether the Welcoming Vampire's ability has triggered, it's not going to see a land entering the battlefield, then turning into a 2/2 creature, then turning into a 3/3 creature, or even a land creature that's a 2/2 entering the battlefield and then becoming a 3/3. Rather, it's just going to see a 3/3 land creature entering the battlefield. And of course, that's not going to match the Welcoming Vampire, so the Welcoming Vampire would not trigger in that case. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.